Right, what is going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel and another workout talk through video. Today I'm going to be taking you through my new back workout, as although I did a recent back workout talking through some of the changes that I've made a few more changes just to maximize what I am getting out of my back training. A few niche tweaks to the previous plan, which was changed a lot from the plan before that, and this is going to be me taking you through why I've changed certain things, why I'm doing certain things, and what certain things are done to achieve what outcome. So stay tuned, join me for the video. I've got the workout up here and I'm going to go through it with you now. Okay, so exercise 1, we have pull-ups here. What I have done is I have moved away from free weight pull-ups to this assisted pull-up machine. The reason being is it's going to be a lot more stable than when I used to deploy the resistance band to add that bit of extra help when I couldn't achieve enough reps with just my body weight. But doing it on this, it means I'm in that fixed position and I can keep and maintain tension on my back throughout all phases of the movement. Whereas when I was using the resistance band and I started to struggle, you could feel the body start to move and the tension shift away from the back onto the rear delts and the arms, mainly forearms on the thicker bar that I was using to do the pull-ups previously. What I am doing here is I am trying to keep my elbows tucked in, not too much so that I'm using more arm and forearm, but enough so that I am engaging the lats and not flaring out too much to engage too much of the upper back and rear delts. Although this is not isolating the lats as such, we are trying to focus more on the lats while using some of the rest of the back musculature as well. Setup here is 4 by as many reps as possible, aiming for 15 reps as the progression metric. So what I am doing here is I'm starting on the least resistance, whereas on most exercises in this pyramid style we start light and get heavier. What I am doing here is I'm starting at the heaviest with the least assistance, and then as I move through the 4 stages of the pyramid, I increase the weight to give me more assistance, therefore help me to reach that 15 rep range. Making sure to pull through my back and through my elbows as opposed to my wrists and arms. And the way to put this cue into practice is to imagine your hands as hooks. I'm sure many of you have heard that analogy before, but what this means is don't grip too much with your arms so that your forearms and biceps are engaged from the get-go. Have your wrist wrapped up and just let your fingers wrap over the bar and then just leave them limp, and then just focus on keeping that elbow tucked and tight so that your lats are always engaged and your back is always engaged as opposed to your hands and arms. Similarly, so when we are reaching the end range, so the length and range, do not engage your traps and release your shoulders and just let tension shift up to your shoulders and traps. Like I said, when we're tucking those elbows, you can feel your traps start to depress. So keep in that position and just pull in that movement pathway. That is another reason why having it on the machine is going to help you to maintain constant tension on the back and the lats, increasing that overall time under tension when performing your pull-ups. Okay, so now you can see that we're moving into the old school meat and potatoes free weight barbell rows. This is my hip hinge, so my erector work, which is the lower back or the back bum as it can be depicted as. The setup here is 4 sets again, this time 10 reps, aiming for around 8 reps on that top set just to get some load through the erectors in that hinge position, but also to put some weight through the back. What you can see is, although when the weight increases I am coming up a little bit more as I row, what I am continuing to do is keep my elbows and rowing down into my hip as I pull up. So I'm not just pulling back like this and just throwing myself, I've turned myself to the side, just throwing myself up like this. I'm still rowing down and back. I'm really trying to engage the middle of my back and my lats, as well as obviously when you're coming up, you're going to shift the tension up your back. So this is just a really good way of working your back as a whole. Not everything you do needs to be isolation work. You need to lift with purpose and know what you're aiming to achieve from each exercise you do, but working your overall back is not the end of the world, especially when you need your overall back to grow, such as I do. So putting some weight on the bar, working the erectors and working all of the back, so from the erectors upwards, keeping as much tension on the mid back and lats as we can, but also getting some work through the upper back in those heavier sets when we have to use a little bit of body English to get the rep completed and the muscle fully short. Although I'm doing this, I'm not staying upright the entire time to do a shrug. I'm still making sure to get back into that hinge if I have come up a little bit in the rep and really lengthen the back as I come down. So I'm not just keeping the rep short and just ramping them out. I am making sure to keep the range of motion as full as I can while getting some weight through the back. What you also want to be aware of is making sure you're still pulling back with your elbows and not your hands. If you lift too heavy and you start to do this with your arm as you row and you're just pulling up as opposed to pulling back, a little bit of both is okay, but if you could find yourself start doing forearm curls, that is going to be taking obviously tension off your back. So like I said with the pull-ups, where we're using our hands as hooks and really driving that tension through our elbows to engage as much of the back as possible, a good indicator of whether you're doing this obviously is the feel. Can you feel it in your forearms when you perform it? But it is the angle of your arm when you pull. If you are pulling with your elbow, you will not be ending your reps like this as much as you would be if you are using your arms to pull the weight. Next, we are doing T-bar rows. This time we are doing 5 sets. The first 2 being more like warm up and primer sets, and then the last 3 being proper working sets where we are aiming for that failure range within the 8 to 10 rep range, with set 1 hitting that 10, and we get heavier as we go, aiming for that 10 rep range on working set 1 to set 3, and then aiming for around the 8 to 10 when we get to 4 and 5, working sets 2 and 3. You can see that I'm using the narrower grip in the neutral hand position. This is going to make it easier to drive my elbow into the hip and engage more of the lat here. What we are doing, we're trying to work the lat predominantly in this movement. Whereas in the first 2 exercises, we are just incorporating as much back as possible. This one is more targeted towards the lats. I like to use the T-bar as a good analogy when I present the ways to train the back. As you can see on this T-bar, there are 3 handles, 3 grips to hold it. You've got the one I'm using here, elbows tucked, more lats. As we move out, we move up the back and the tension goes towards the mid back and the upper lats. And then lastly, in that pronated grip with a more flared elbow, we are pulling with our upper back and our rear delts. So the analogy is this spectrum here, the chicken. As our wings spread, we are pulling with more upper back. As our wings tuck, we are pulling with more lats. That is how I like to explain it to my clients, and hopefully that makes sense to you using this T-bar analogy. But for the sake of the video, this is lats, wings tucked, elbows tucked, aiming for that hip. Put your elbow in your pocket of the hip, and we are driving, again, hands as hooks with our elbows into that hip, driving with our elbows to engage as much of the lats as possible. As you can see, I'm not letting my back round as much on this one, less thoracic extension. This is because I am trying to keep the tension as low down the back as possible into those lower lats, up towards the mid back and the mid latins, as opposed to when you'll see in the next exercise when we thoracic round. I'll explain the reason behind that when we get to it. What I did here is I've taken a low progression recently. This is individual to my training, so I did not reach that 8 to 10 rep range. So what I did on that final set is I just dropped the plate off and went again, got a couple more extra reps in just to accrue a bit more volume and work beyond that failure. That intensity technique drop set is a way just to get more out of your workouts, especially when you try something new. Just because I didn't get the reps doesn't mean I'm a failure. Drop the weight, get those extra couple reps, and then next week we aim to get more on that initial phase, and then we can drop out the drop set and leave it for a later exercise. Okay, exercise 4, we have my favorite back exercise, the prime seated row. My aim for this exercise is to work the mid back, so the middle of the back and the middle lats, of course, still trying to get some lats, but overall mid back work, not focusing on the lower lats, not focusing on getting those upper back working. So we're still dropping the traps to minimize the engagement of the traps and the rear delts, the upper back musculature, and we're really trying to work on that meat in the middle of the back. So 4 by 10 here, again, pyramid style, working up in weight, trying to keep in the majority a pronated grip with a little bit of supination towards neutral, just to allow my elbows to more comfortably stay tucked as we get into that fully shortened position. So what I'm doing here is I'm increasing my range of motion by performing thoracic extension, where I come and round my mid back over the chest support. That is why the chest support is so great, because you can use it as a gauge without using momentum to really extend your ranges of motion. So I'm extending my range of motion by performing thoracic extension to really stretch the middle of my back out, keeping my traps dropped to keep the tension on that mid back instead of the upper back. And then I'm driving my elbows a bit further past my hip here as I'm trying to get in the middle of my back, as opposed to just working the middle of my lats, developing that thickness as well as width. As you can see here, I have got some weight on the top peg and some weight on the middle peg. Obviously not all machines are going to be set out like this, but the strength profile of the lat is strong to weak as you pull. So in that length and range, it is at its strongest, and as we shorten, as we get towards the end of each rep, our strength drops off in terms of the lat muscle itself. So having more weight on that top peg in that beginning range of the movement, with the top peg being the beginning, middle in the middle peg, and then the end range being the bottom peg. Match the strength profile to the resistance profile of the machine. Strong to weak, so heavy to lighter. This machine also has a little bit of a drop off as we get towards the fully lengthened position. So we're lengthening and the machine kind of like dips at a certain point, so you'll feel the weight start to take you. So what you want to do is slowly come through the eccentric, and then when you feel it start to dip, you can just hang in that position for a second, perform your thoracic extension to stretch out the lat, and then pull again. It makes for a good gauge of your range of motion, when to stop, where to pause, and when to initiate your next rep, while also, of course, maintaining control over the phases of movement. The eccentric needs to be slow, as this is where a lot more muscle stimulus can occur. Therefore, you can grow more muscle from keeping in control of the lengthening phase, of the lowering of the weight, pausing to minimize momentum and to keep constant tension of the muscle. More tension over time equals more stimulus overall, and then pause, remove momentum so we can keep the tension again on the intended muscle, and make sure that we are using that muscle as the primary driver for each rep. As you can see from all this description, this is why this is my favorite machine. Okay, so now the pump is on, the t-shirt is off and the vest is on, showing you my back pump as we move on to exercise 5, which is this Panata Row. So we've talked about lats this, mid back that, keeping our traps down to not include the upper back. We need to work some upper back here. So what this machine is great at is hitting that upper back, because it works in a pendulum swing. So as you pull, the machine moves like this. Why is that good? Well, at the top of the movement, where we're like this, we can really squeeze those rhomboids, those upper back fibers, the lower traps, while also getting down and stretching out our back in the fully lengthened range. Because we are working our upper back here, or we're working our back, but we're targeting and really trying to get some stimulus through the upper back, what I'm doing is, as I perform each rep, so I'm obviously doing a bit of thoracic extension to stretch out our back, letting my traps come up a little bit here to get some stretch in those lower trap fibers. But as I pull, I'm not just coming here, I'm puffing my chest up, coming a little bit away from the chest pad to really exaggerate that shortening, that squeeze of each rep. That being said, with the intricacies that this movement entails, where we're trying to execute in the way we are, we're using a larger rep range, a 4x15. Using a larger rep range means we can't go as heavy, meaning we can work in that bigger rep range. We've done a lot of 8s to 10s. So to utilize the larger rep range, while also making sure that we can't achieve a weight where we're using more of the back muscles than we want to, we're keeping that tension on the upper back. Another analogy here, as well as the free grip analogy with the chicken wings, we've also got the seat. The lower down the seat, the higher up the back you're likely to pull on a machine, because the machine isn't going to move with you. In most cases, obviously there are some leverage machines that do, but on your general machines, if you put a higher seat, you're going to be pulling lower down and working lower down your back. If you put a lower seat, you're forced to pull higher up the body and use more of your upper back. As simple as that. So using this as well as the movement pathway of the machine that works in that pendulum swing, I'm doing a pyro R. But using the combination of those two things, and also the cue to puff your chest and pull up to get those lower trap fibers and work the entirety of the upper back, this maximizes what we can get out of this Panata Row. You can see my elbows are a little bit more flared here. I'm using more of a neutral to supinated grip in that kind of diagonal phase. The reason being, like I said, with the chicken wings, we are trying to get higher up that back. So taking tension off the lats and forcing it up the back is only going to provide more tension for the upper back, therefore more stimulus for the upper back, therefore more opportunity to grow our upper back. And as you can see, we finished with a nice lat spread to show off the pump. Okay, I know what you may be thinking. This is a lot of reps, a lot of exercises. Is this too much volume? Me personally, I only train once a week, so even if I did dig myself into a massive hole, I have got that 7-day window to recover before I go again. I'm still progressing. I have not hit a plateau within my strength and my recovery of my back. Therefore, this works for me. You do not have to copy my exact workout. Just use these tips, use these cues, use these reasonings and purposes behind why I do a certain exercise and why I perform it a certain way, and just pick and choose things to add to your workout. You can try the full workout and see if you can recover from it. Great. But that being said, we're on to exercise 6. I usually superset it with the machine behind, cable row with a machine pull down. But what I have found is I was not doing it properly, if that makes sense. I was getting so tired by the time I got to like set 3 and 4 of the pull down superset. I was just throwing the weight and I wasn't really getting much out of it. So what I decided to do is split them and actually do a 7 exercise workout. But first we've got the machine cable row. This has changed from the machine cable row before, as I've swapped out the V-bar for the mag grip. Personal preference. Me personally, I am a wider person, like from shoulder to shoulder. Therefore the V-bar, I kind of find it awkward to keep tucked and work my lats. Therefore well, this little bit wider just allows me to get into that position more comfortably and actually pull with my back a bit better. Whereas I found with a V-bar, I was pulling with more bicep and forearm as I got to the shortened range. So here, I was starting to flare out. I couldn't keep comfortably without using too much arm. So that wider grip allowed me to stay tucked a lot better, and also allowed me to actually feel my back as I pulled backwards. Personal preference, of course. Again, just use these attachments and see what works for you. If you like something, stick with it. Don't listen to anyone else but your own body's feedback and your own physique's development. There are certain things that are fact, but a lot of exercise is due to what you can do, how well you perform it, and what works for you. Just use the cues that I provided to help you to engage your back and to feel your back when you work, and then use those tips on whatever exercises you see fit. Hopefully you like the ones I'm showing you and choose those. 4 by 15, again, we are really working in those higher rep ranges now, working on the fluff, the isolation and contractive work, following the heavy meat and potatoes, get your back nice and thick work that we did earlier on in the workout. You can see that I'm coming forward to stretch out the back, the thoracic extension, but I'm not letting my shoulders round over. I'm not letting them take tension off on my back, keeping the tension on the back, the intention of constant tension on the muscle that we are working. And then as I pull back, I am pulling back and really trying to wrap my shoulder blades around my spine, as opposed to just driving into the hip with the sole focus on the lat. I'm trying to work my lats and then rest of my back and really finish my back off at the end of the back end of this workout. So I am coming forward, extending my back and really wrapping my shoulder blades around my spine to really shorten my back and really squeeze each rep, really get that full range of motion on each rep within my lats and my mid-back musculature. With these freer movements, so the seated cable row, although it is on a cable machine, the cable moves around. What you want to do is think about driving down and back. So you want to pull like this as opposed to just pulling linearly in that horizontal plane. You want to pull in a backwards diagonal. As we pull, we are tucked, lats engaged, down, lats firing, and then back to work the mid back and really get our shoulder blades around our spine to work that full range of motion. This will keep as much tension on the back and as little tension on the limbs, so the arms and the shoulders, as you possibly can. And then lastly, I'm moved from a bilateral, so using both arms in that superset fashion, to unilateral, just to work my imbalances on the final exercise. I was struggling personally with my left side to my right. My right trap was tight and my left scapula was weak and bound up. So when I pull dual arm, sometimes some things go before the other. Therefore, working single arm movements either at the beginning to get the muscle firing and primed and pumped some blood into those areas, or at the end to make sure that when my muscles are fatigued, the agonistic muscles aren't contributing too much to the movement. Those are two main reasons why you want to use single arm, as well as strength imbalances. My strength is relatively even. It's just the way that I pull in the positions I have to get in to match those certain imbalances and bound up muscles previously, before I've had tissue work to release them, just meant that single arm workouts, single arm movements are extremely beneficial to me. Here I'm working in the 12 rep range, tucking down into the side that I'm pulling. So what I'm doing is I'm here, my elbows tucked to engage my lats. I'm down on that side, weight is on the side that I'm pulling with. This is because if you put your weight on the other side, you'll find yourself using momentum and just swinging through the movement using anything but the muscle. So weight on the side you're pulling, trap dropped, elbow tucked, lat engaged, full range of movement without releasing tension off the lats. We're coming up with our lat, not with our arm, hands as hooks, driving down into the hip, weight on that side to minimize hip rotation as we pull. So we're pulling and turning in with our lat as opposed to turning around with our hips. That being said, that is the end of the workout and the end of the talk through. I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you found these tips, cues, execution techniques, the purpose for each exercise. I hope you found it all useful and you found some insight from this video. If you did enjoy it and found it useful, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, why not? Support me, join the journey. We've got the vlogs, the off-season series, the educational series that I'm bringing to you, as well as these educational workout talk through videos. Leave a comment down below of what you want to see next, what sort of things you want me to cover, and then share this video to a friend to help them along the journey and help their physique development. I will catch you all in the next one.